All right. Part 2. Browsing and editing the values in the game. So before we get into actually getting into the game files and editing things, I want to talk real quick on the different file types. There are a lot of different file types in Unreal Engine games. I should probably have prepared this beforehand. Give me a second. All right, so I actually did it up a little bit. Cool. So there's different files in an Unreal Engine, Incursion Red River specifically, that you're going to interact with while modding, and to go over some of them. So a .pack is probably one of the more important files. It's a package file. So if you actually go in and go to our game files and we go to test C content packs, all of these pack chunks are the actual game files that holds all the logic, all the characters, all the models, all the information. That's all in there. And most of the modding that you're doing right now that I'm going to be teaching you how to do is package rewriting or overwriting. We're taking something, we're overwriting it, we're overwriting that package element. So .packs or packages are just package game files in a way that Unreal can read. UAssets. UAssets and EXP are Unreal Asset files, the data files, the different classes, types, and the bulk data files themselves. So when we're in, something like fModel, and again, we'll get into this in a second, but, we go in, let's say we find, we dig into, we're in, let's go to make an easy one. So we're going to go dive all the way into a gun, makes sense. So weapons, we're into the SVD material type. Or SVT gun in the game. All of these items in here are all UAssets. They're Unreal assets. It's another packaged file type, but usually it's either a bunch of blueprint information or whatnot. It's packaged into a asset file. These are what we're going to be directly editing, whether it be the values or later replacing the textures and information in the UAssets themselves. So the bulk. Yeah, the EXP, when we export out of fModel, you'll see EXP files. They just need to stay next to the asset files. A lot of these asset files have a lot of metadata in them, effectively. Not actually, but for your knowledge and for your information, for all you care about is that the EXPs need to be next with the UAssets, effectively. The other file or data type is JSON. It's a JavaScript object notation. I know that sounds like a lie. It's just a different way of viewing these UAssets. So another export form, we can export this out and view it in Unreal Asset GUI, or we can export as a JSON. There's pros and cons. Some are easier to read, some aren't, depending on who you are. I work with a lot of JSON files in my past projects, non-modding related, so JSON I'm comfortable with. Another side of this is adding different elements that aren't in there. So let's say, we have one of the things that you can edit, and this is like the item spawn rarity weights. And let's say it only has 1 and 2 listed, but you want to list 3 and 4. In JSON, we can actually inject that via editing a JSON and converting it in and out. You can't really do that with the UAsset file. So JSON is just another data type file. So if you see a JSON file somewhere, cool. A UE model, that is just, think of it like it's a mesh file. If you've ever seen like a 3D model without any texturing, it's just white or gray, depending on how you're viewing it. For Unreal purposes, that is a Unreal model. Unreal Engine model. There's different file types. There's a setting we're going to change when we get to the texturing side that if you don't, you might see .pack, or sorry, .psk, PSK or PAK, sorry, PSK, PSAK files. It's an older model file, but I'll show you how we're going to use UE model. Obviously, you probably know what PNG, JPEG are, those pictures. Another one that you might see in the Unreal is .hdr. That's an icon file. It's a compressed HDR file. There's some funky stuff that we'll have to do when we get into that, but those are those. The last file type that I forgot to add on here that I want to bring up is a .ini. So in the config up here, you'll see, default game, gameplay tags, and there's some information here. A lot of it's basic settings, the game name, stuff like that. Those are .ini files. Think of it like a fancy text file that highlights things. That's really effectively what it is. Just another data type, data file type. So now we have all. Now you have I get a really fast overview on the file types. Moving over to Unreal class engine class names, you have all these different abbreviations, and these aren't going to be the same from Unreal to game to Unreal game, and even from folder to folder based off of where the assets originally came from, whether they were maybe they were on the marketplace, maybe someone else, a different contractor, a different developer made the asset and brought it into Incursion. These might change, so these aren't static, these aren't tried and true, but they're a good thing to know if you're looking at the game files and you don't know what you're actually looking at, because all the asset files will just be Unreal or UAsset. They won't have a .blueprint on it. So the first two letters are going to be important. So some of those are blueprints. So in Unreal Engine, blueprints are effectively how you code. It's a visual coding. So instead of typing line after line after line after line, instead, you're dropping in a box. It has a bunch of dots that you can plug values into it and take values out of it, and it's a visual scripting method. They can be done in C++, but again, not all you need to know is that's like a logic class. MI or an M, it's material interfaces, materials. When you're thinking of a texture, and we'll get more into this in a later video, you have your different textures, your JPEGs, whatever. But like if I were to texture this shirt, yeah, you'll think of a texture like the red, kind of the redness of the shirt, but there's also other things like the roughness. How shiny is it? Is there like slightly ripples that you're not going to do out in the mesh, but you still want those ripples to appear, be a normal map. So all of those different textures, in Unreal, it's tend to be 3, which we'll get into. You need to go into a material to know where it ends up. How is it going to be actually rendered and displayed on it? So that's what those material interface kind of class names are. T texture, like we talked about, it'll be JPEGs, HDRs. If you see a T, it's gonna be a texture of some sort. DA and DT, it's data asset and data tables. Those are gonna be bulk information. A good example in F-model, in Incursion Red River specifically. If I go into inventory, if I go into presets, container, final, these are the loop containers, and these are all data assets. So if I open one of these up, it's going to go through, and this is effectively it's a database controlling what types of items can spawn in the general boxes in Incursion Red River, what's the rarity weights, and I'm not going to get all into that, but it's a good example of a data asset with a bunch of values in it. An ID or identity class, usually you're going to find these at the head of items. So if we go to items here, let's say we go to the SVD. If you go to the folder, the actual header folder, the parent folder, you'll see an ID. And here in this, you'll see the name of it, what variant is it, is there a short string, abbreviation, just identity information. A lot of times these will also kind of point to other different classes, or maybe hey, this blueprint handles the fire control, whether it's automatic or whatnot, so might point to the fire control. So it's an identity or information kind of think of it like a crossroads of a street, like an intersection where it kind of traffic guard telling what different things are and what things are. Next one, SKM or SK skeletal mesh. I'm also going to go to the next one real quick, is SMS static mesh. So those are both meshes like we were talking about a second ago with if you looked at a 3D model with no texturing on it. The difference is a skeletal mesh means there's bones. It means it can be animated. That means it's some sort of character component, or maybe even the guns can sometimes be skeletal meshes if there's reload components to it. So skeletal mesh most often is a character, doesn't have to be, but it's effectively just the mesh, but it has a bunch of bones for animation. While a static mesh is what you think of the word static. It's just a mesh. It's just the file. Maybe the stock of a gun. The FAL X series stock. That'd be a static mesh because there's no animations with the stock. It's just a stock. So that's it. It's just a flat stock. So there's no animations, no bones. It's just a static mesh. There are other types that I'm not covering here. There's a bunch of different types and different naming conventions. So the best way, if you don't know what something is, for example, if I go up to curves, I'm not covering these curve items, but if I go into Here you have FC. I didn't cover FC. If you double click this, which opens up in your right window, at the very top you'll see a little bit of information. You'll see type curve flow FC. It's just inverted. It's float curve. But right there now we know it. And a lot of these names you can go Google on Unreal Docs and see what it is. What exactly this blueprint does. What is a curve float do? So you could do this and repeat this time and time again to kind of figure out what is this. What type of class is this? And as you spend more and more time, you'll start understanding the file structure and the naming conventions of Incursion Red River. So it makes it very easy to tell. Oh, I need a texture file. Oh, that's the texture file. So, but that's just a really good initial overview on the different classes and files that you're going to run into while modding. All right, so actually getting into editing and adjusting the files. First thing you want to do is figure out what you actually want to do or what's your goal to achieve. You can aimlessly go through the files and find things that you want to edit and mess around with, but it's kind of good to also kind of know what you want to do before digging into the files, because they're kind of complicated, especially if you're new to this. Like, so for an example, an idea is, let's say I want to rename in-game the SVD, and I want to rename it the, Long Boyga, whatever, and I want to change the names of it. So, cool. All right, so now we have an objective. So we're going to go into load. And it's important, there's different loading methods. I should point on this real quick. All will load every single one of these packs, while you could just double click. Unless I want to just look at 6, I can just double click and only look at 6. As you spend more time, you'll start learning like what packs contain what. So like I know 6 contains most of the inventory system blueprints, just by messing with the inventory system a bunch. So it makes it really easy to just quickly find things. But for this tutorial, we're going to go down click all load. In test C, we're going to drop down test C. So now we're in the main game files. And you have config, content, plugins. Most of our stuff's going to be in content. A very big folder is blueprint. And cool, now we have a bunch of stuff in here. We have the inventory system, loading system. So again, we're trying to change the name. So kind of think of it like logically, like, okay, cool, it's an item. It's an item. So we're going to go find inventory system. Well, that makes kind of sense. It'd be an item, inventory, cool. Awesome, items, perfect, cool, weapons, and DMR. There's the SVD right here. And going back to those class names, if I go too far, mesh. All right, yeah, we got a physics asset, we got a skeleton, cool. If I double click this, here's the actual receiver for the SVD. Awesome, that doesn't seem to be what I want. I can look through this a little bit. I can hit Control F on my keyboard and try to type in SVD, and maybe that's not well enough, because I'm getting a lot of these, they're pointing to other classes. That's not really what I want to edit. Same thing with the if I go to materials, cool. Oh yeah, we have a bunch of material interfaces, we got a bunch of textures. Again, not really what I'm looking for. I'm trying to change an ID file, an information identity file. I'm trying to change the name of it. So cool. Another good bit to know, if you look at all these folders, there's a little dot with it, and it has, or for some of the folders, a little dot, and it has a brown circle, and there's a small number there. Can I make this bigger? No, I can't. That's unfortunate. There's a little dot with some numbers, you'll notice. If you see that, that means there's packages in that folder. So even parent folders, this folder has items in it, subfolders in it, but that parent folder also has it. So you don't always have to go to find the final folder and there'll be something in there. There could be things in the parent folder above that. So boom, cool. Here's an ID. Awesome. I'm gonna scroll through this. Oh, perfect. Right here, we have different strings. That's exactly what I want to change. So in here, you'll notice this is two of the same. For this, it doesn't matter because we're going to override either. We're going to set ours at the top of what's called the loading priority, which I'll get into at the very end, but it doesn't matter. You're going to grab one. So you're going to right click this, and when you right click it, you'll see a bunch of options: save animation, save model texture, save the JSON, save the UAsset. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to click UAsset. Now, it will default save, I forget where it defaults save, but if you want to point and save it to a very specific folder, what you can do is you actually can go into your settings in here and you can change your output directory to a different directory if it's easier for you. So that's just something to note. But ways to find this file, you can either just click this link here and it will open up your file on a different screen, but it will open up your file folder there, or this little folder icon down here too will also open up the master folder, the top folder of all the exports. So then you could go into into exports, test C, content, and I've exported some other things already, obviously, but you could also go through that. So we're gonna again go back and just open this up. So you see we have an Unreal asset and we have a UXP bulk data file. So normally you won't see this as a kind of a magnifying glass. You won't see the Unreal asset icon. What you can do is you can right click, open with more apps, and then you can look for another app on your PC. Go to your modding your folder that we saved the Unreal Asset GUI to, and you can click open with that. And as long as the check mark was on the prior thing, it makes it a little easier. Instead of having to open up Unreal Asset and then go find it that way, you can just open it directly from the UAsset file. Some files you'll see failed to parse 26 exports. All of these items, what this means is that ID file is talking out to all of these different items here. So I'm click OK through here. You can ignore that for right now. Sorry, I didn't finish my sentence. You can ignore that for right now. So in here, cool. We have a bunch of information, and obviously, if you see here, it's you're just getting raw data now because it's not pointy. Those things aren't exported out of the game. So, well, if you really wanted to, you can actually go in down that list and then right-click export on all those Unreal assets. You don't have to, but you could do that. But what we're trying to find is we want to go try to find where those where these items are, where this item appearances, and you can kind of follow this a little bit. Kind of think of it like indentations. You know, its parent is Incursion Red River item definition, and then there's a subthing of properties, and then under item appearance, it's there. So if we go over here, there's different export numbers and export IDs. You have inventory supported items, a bunch of random stuff there. But ID SVDS, which is right here, the name ID SVDS. Find there, cool. There's your item definitions. We're gonna go find properties. Or sorry, appearance, item appearance. And you'll see right here, boom, we have all these different values. So there's a name value, there's an abbreviated value, a description, a vendor row. So cool, we want to name it, we're gonna name this, just double click this. I'm gonna call it Long Boy Gun. And the abbreviation, well, it's gonna be an LBG, Long Boy Gun. And I can name this the gun for the longest of boys, of people, men. What's this, boys? Cool. I'm gonna file, save that. So we've saved the file. Awesome. Create another folder in an easy spot and call it Incursion Red River, modding files, whatever. Again, I have mine up here, IRR mod files. But you want to create a separate folder for mod files, and it's important. I'll show you why in here in a second. So in that folder, you're going to create 2 more folders in that. You'll have packed and unpacked. This is important for Pack Master and just good organization. We only currently have the Unreal Asset, file that we changed. But if you remember the very beginning of the video, the game only reads .packages. That's the end file format we need to get to. So how do we do that? So effectively, we need to kind of recreate that file structure that we went through in FModel. We went through all those different folders, and we want to override. Our goal is to override these ID files. We're gonna, we want ours to load and not that. So what we need to do is recreate that entire, string of folders. Now I built a Python script to do it easily, but I will show you, just how to do it manually. So what I like to do is you open up this guy and say, cool, I have this long string. We're gonna go into unpacked, keep it file exposed. We're gonna right click, or you can even click new folder up here. And this one can just be we'll call this Long Boy Gun mod. Cool, so now we've named the mod. Now we're gonna go right click, and we're gonna start with test C. So that's the name, that's the parent file. If you remember all the way back into here in the folders, the parent file is test C. So in test C, from that point downwards, we're gonna follow this and match it exactly. So test C, we're gonna right click folder, call this one content. We're gonna create a new folder, call it blueprints. So I've gone through and I've mimicked this exactly. And if you're editing multiple files in one mod, you're gonna need to go back and let's say we want to rename also, the M4A1. We want to rename that to a new name. We'll go all the way back to items, or sorry, all the way back to weapons, and you'll want to go create then, rifle, and then you're gonna want to create all that. You're gonna create all the file structures, the parent file structures exactly as they are in the fmodel export. Create all of that in this new folder. So once we're here, all we're going to simply do is we're going to grab both of these guys and we're going to drag it over to our new folder. Boom, done, awesome. So now, if you remember the first video, we installed Packmaster, but we didn't really get into it. So now it's time to get into it. So you're going to go into your that's current mod stuff. We're going to go into where you storage your tools, Packmaster. And we're going to open up Packmaster. Cool. Now we're in Packmaster. Great. You have your input and output folder. So this is where those packed and unpacked is. So it kind of helps to look at this. You're repacking into this folder. You're unpacking into this folder. So the output is the unpacked folder. Kind of think of it as an invert. We're inverting what you mentally think it is. So we're gonna go into our mod files. We're gonna just click unpack right here and click open. Actually open again. So now boom, there's that gun mod folder there. We're gonna go to browse input folder, go back one folder, and we're back into the packed mods. We're gonna double click into that, click open. So now that is saved on the left side as the packed folder. And simply enough, we're gonna go here and click repack. And awesome, right there, we now have a packed file. If I close out of this and I go into our mod files and go to pack, boom, we have a package. Cool. Now this Packmaster does a really cool thing, but it's an important thing I bring up. If you see here, the end of this, there's an _P. I don't know exactly what it stands for. I think it's priority, but effectively the _P, what that means is that this packed file will take priority over any other packed file. It will overwrite all the packed files below it. If you don't have that, it probably won't work. There's another thing with pack chunk and the load order of that can get funky, but all you need to know for right now, _P is important. For this type of mod, any mod that doesn't involve texturing or modeling switches, that you're just editing the UAsset files just like that, just values, simple text edits, you don't need to go through Unreal Engine or anything like that, which we'll show in the next video, but you just need to do it this way. And you don't need all the pack chunk stuff in front of it for now. So simple enough. Right here, we have the modified pack, and you can rename all of this in front. I tend to always drop off the modified element, but you don't have to. I'm going to Control-C this, and we're going to go to your Incursion Red River Steam folder. Go to your test-C, content, packs, and just drag it right in there. Boom, right there at the top. Awesome, cool. We're going to exit out and exit out of this. Now, if we did everything correctly, if we open up Incursion Red River, we go interact with it, marketplace, weapons, DMR. Now, ignore that this says SVDS, it's a different thing. But you see longboy guns right here. If I right click inspect, the gun for the longest of boys, and if I were to add this gun, I purchase it, we'll go run over here. LBG right there, there's that changed. But yeah, that's the basics. Cool. You can go in and change, different values. That's how Koala Bear did the, actions while running. That's how I changed the name of Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin. My safe adjustment mod, like adjusts the spawn rates and safes. That's another one where I did that. The alpha text is a similar boat. So, that's changing value. So next video we're gonna get into is texture changing. So see you then.